The dusty attic of Harold Pemberton's modest Cleveland home held 40 years of accumulated memories, but Dorothy had been dreading the task of sorting through her father's belongings since his funeral 3 weeks earlier. At 52, she had taken time off from her job as a high school librarian to handle the estate of the man who had raised her alone after her mother's death when Dorothy was 12. Harold had been a quiet, methodical man who worked as an electrical engineer for the city of Cleveland until his retirement in 2015. His house reflected his practical nature: functional furniture, outdated appliances, and boxes of technical manuals and electronics parts that most people would have considered junk, but that Harold had saved just in case they might be useful someday. Dad never threw anything away, Dorothy muttered to herself as she opened another box filled with obsolete computer components, tangled cables, and instruction manuals for devices that had been obsolete for decades. The process of clearing Harold's house had been emotionally exhausting, forcing Dorothy to confront how little she had known about her father's interests and activities during the years since she had moved out to start her own life. Their relationship had been loving but distant, with weekly phone calls and monthly dinners that rarely delved into personal topics beyond work, health, and weather. In the far corner of the attic, behind boxes of Christmas decorations and her childhood belongings, Dorothy discovered a wooden desk that Harold had apparently been using as a workspace for some kind of technical project. The desk was covered with computer parts, cryptocurrency articles printed from various websites, and handwritten notes that mentioned terms like mining pools, hash rates, and digital wallets. "What were you working on up here, Dad?" Dorothy asked aloud, examining the papers and trying to understand what had interested Harold enough to create this makeshift office in the cramped attic space. Among the scattered documents, she found a spiral notebook filled with Harold's careful handwriting, documenting what appeared to be a systematic study of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency mining that dated back to 2009, just months after Bitcoin had first been released to the public. "Started mining BTC today with the old Dell computer," read the first entry, dated November 15, 2009. "Electricity costs are minimal, and the difficulty is still low enough that I can mine several coins per week." Dorothy flipped through pages of meticulous records, showing Harold's mining activities over several years, including detailed calculations of electricity costs, mining yields, and the increasing value of the Bitcoin he was accumulating. June 2011, BTC price hit $30 today. My 847 coins are worth over $25,000, Harold had written. "Should I sell some? No, I think this is just the beginning." As Dorothy continued reading through Harold's cryptocurrency journal, she realized that her father had been secretly mining and accumulating Bitcoin for over a decade, apparently building a digital fortune that he had never mentioned to her during any of their conversations. December 2017, BTC reached $19,000. My holdings are worth over $16 million. Need to be more careful about security, read one entry that made Dorothy's hands shake as she calculated the magnitude of wealth that Harold had apparently accumulated in secret. But the journal entries after 2017 became increasingly concerned about security issues, government regulations, and the challenges of maintaining cryptocurrency holdings safely over long periods. March 2020 moved all BTC to cold storage on the custom drive. "No one will ever find it there, but I need to make sure Dorothy knows about it if something happens to me," Harold had written in one of his final entries. Dorothy felt her heart racing as she realized that Harold had been planning to tell her about his Bitcoin fortune, but had apparently died before he could share the information. Somewhere in the house, there was a hard drive containing cryptocurrency worth millions of dollars. She spent the next several hours frantically searching through Harold's bedroom, office, and basement, looking for any computer equipment that might contain his Bitcoin wallet. But most of Harold's electronics had been outdated when she had cleaned out the house, and she had donated or discarded everything that seemed obsolete or broken. The realization hit her with devastating force. She had thrown away Harold's Bitcoin fortune during her initial cleaning of the house 3 weeks earlier. "Oh, God," Dorothy whispered, sinking into Harold's desk chair as she understood the magnitude of what she had done. "I threw away millions of dollars because I didn't know what Dad was working on." Harold's journal entries became increasingly desperate as Dorothy reread them, searching for clues about where he had hidden his cryptocurrency holdings and how she might be able to recover them. "The custom drive is disguised as a regular external backup drive, but it contains the private keys to my entire BTC holdings," Harold had written. It looks like junk, but it's the most valuable thing I own. Dorothy remembered seeing several old external drives and computer components that she had assumed were worthless electronics from Harold's engineering work. She had loaded them into garbage bags along with other outdated technology and placed them on the curb for trash pickup. The trash had been collected over 2 weeks ago, which meant that Harold's Bitcoin fortune was now somewhere in the Cuyahoga County landfill, buried under tons of garbage and potentially lost forever. As Dorothy sat in her father's attic workspace, surrounded by evidence of the cryptocurrency fortune she had unknowingly discarded, she realized that she was facing a choice between accepting the loss of millions of dollars or attempting the seemingly impossible task of finding a single hard drive in one of America's largest municipal garbage dumps. Harold's careful documentation of his Bitcoin mining activities had revealed both the magnitude of the fortune he had accumulated and the tragic irony that his daughter's ignorance of his secret project had resulted in one of the most expensive mistakes in cryptocurrency history. The practical engineer who had spent years building digital wealth had failed to communicate its existence to the person who would inherit it, leading to a loss that would haunt Dorothy for the rest of her life unless she could find some way to recover what she had thoughtlessly thrown away. Dorothy spent the next 3 days poring over Harold's journal entries and cryptocurrency research, trying to understand exactly what she was looking for and calculate whether the potential value of the lost Bitcoin justified the enormous expense and effort that would be required to search for it in the county landfill. BTC holdings as of December 2020, 1,247 coins stored on encrypted drive, Harold had written in one of his final journal entries. Current wallet value approximately $47 million at today's prices. With Bitcoin trading near $60,000 per coin, Dorothy realized that the lost hard drive contained cryptocurrency worth nearly $75 million at current market values, a fortune that would transform not just her life, but the lives of her children and grandchildren for generations. "I have to try," Dorothy told her sister Margaret during a phone conversation about the devastating discovery. "Even if there's only a small chance of finding it, I can't live with the knowledge that I threw away Dad's life work without making every effort to recover it." Margaret had been skeptical about the likelihood of success, pointing out the practical impossibilities of searching for a single hard drive among millions of tons of garbage in an active landfill. "Dorothy, you're talking about finding a needle in a haystack, except the haystack is the size of a small mountain, and it's being covered with more garbage every day," Margaret had said. "Even if you could get permission to search, how would you know where to look?" But Dorothy had been researching landfill operations and waste management procedures, learning about the systematic ways that garbage was processed and stored at municipal dumps. While the task was daunting, it wasn't necessarily impossible if she could determine the approximate location where Harold's trash had been deposited. Cuyahoga County Waste Management processes approximately 2,000 tons of residential garbage daily, Dorothy learned from her research. Trash is deposited in specific sections based on collection dates and routes, then covered with soil to prevent odors and pest problems. This information meant that Harold's discarded electronics were likely buried in a specific area of the landfill that could be identified based on the trash collection date and the route that had serviced his neighborhood. Dorothy contacted Waste Management Director Chester Whitmore to discuss the possibility of conducting a limited excavation to search for valuable items that had been accidentally discarded. "Ms. Pemberton," Director Whitmore explained during their phone conversation, "we received dozens of requests from people who have accidentally thrown away valuable items. However, we've never attempted a search operation for something as small as a computer hard drive." "This isn't just any hard drive," Dorothy replied. "It contains cryptocurrency worth approximately $75 million. I'm willing to pay for professional excavation services and take full responsibility for any environmental or safety concerns." The magnitude of the potential recovery got Director Whitmore's attention, and he agreed to meet with Dorothy to discuss the feasibility and legal requirements for conducting a search operation at the landfill. "The biggest challenges," Director Whitmore explained during their meeting, "are identifying the specific location where your father's trash was deposited, getting environmental permits for excavation activities, and ensuring that any search operation doesn't interfere with normal landfill operations." Dorothy had prepared for these concerns by hiring an environmental consulting firm and a specialized excavation company that had experience with landfill operations and hazardous waste management. Pemberton Environmental Recovery has experience with similar projects, explained company president Vernon Hayes during their consultation meeting. We can conduct systematic excavation using GPS coordinates and waste layering analysis to identify the most likely locations for items discarded on specific dates. The cost estimates for the search operation were staggering, potentially $500,000 for permits, equipment, labor, and environmental monitoring required for a comprehensive excavation effort. But Dorothy calculated that even a 1% chance of success would justify the expense given the value of Harold's lost cryptocurrency. "I'll mortgage my house if necessary," Dorothy told her children during a family meeting about the search project. "Your grandfather spent over a decade building this fortune, and I can't give up on recovering it without making every reasonable effort." Her adult children, Thomas and Patricia, had been initially skeptical but gradually became supportive as they understood both the magnitude of the potential recovery and Dorothy's determination to honor Harold's legacy. "If we find the hard drive, the Bitcoin fortune will be life-changing for our entire family," Thomas acknowledged. "But even if we don't find it, at least we'll know that we tried everything possible to recover what Grandpa Harold built." The excavation project required 6 months of preparation, including environmental impact assessments, permit applications, and coordination with multiple government agencies that regulated landfill operations and waste recovery activities. The search area has been narrowed to approximately 3,000 cubic yards of material based on waste collection records and GPS mapping of landfill operations, reported project manager Florence Sterling. "We'll be conducting systematic excavation in grid patterns, with metal detectors and visual screening for electronic components." But even with professional equipment and systematic methodology, Dorothy understood that the search operation was essentially an expensive gamble based on incomplete information and numerous assumptions about waste disposal patterns and burial depths. "There's no guarantee that the hard drive survived the compaction and burial process," cautioned environmental engineer Clarence Ashford. "Electronic equipment can be damaged by moisture, pressure, and chemical reactions with other waste materials." As the excavation project finally began after months of preparation, Dorothy found herself camping at the landfill site daily, watching crews sift through tons of garbage in search of the disguised hard drive that contained Harold's cryptocurrency fortune. The search that had started as a desperate attempt to recover a lost inheritance had become an obsession that was consuming Dorothy's time, money, and emotional energy while offering no guarantee of success. But the alternative, accepting that she had permanently lost Harold's life work through ignorance and carelessness, was more difficult for Dorothy to contemplate than the possibility of spending her life savings on a search operation that might ultimately prove futile. The father who had secretly built a cryptocurrency fortune had died before he could teach his daughter about the digital wealth that would have transformed their family's future, leaving her to gamble everything on the slim possibility of recovering what she had unknowingly thrown away. 6 weeks into the excavation project, Dorothy had witnessed the systematic processing of over 800 tons of garbage without finding any trace of Harold's cryptocurrency storage device. The search operation had become a media sensation, attracting attention from technology journalists, cryptocurrency enthusiasts, and treasure hunters who followed the daily progress reports from the Cuyahoga County landfill. The Pemberton hard drive search represents one of the most expensive lost cryptocurrency recovery efforts ever attempted, reported Cleveland Plain Dealer journalist Margaret Cross. But it also highlights the permanent nature of cryptocurrency losses when private keys are irretrievably destroyed or lost. Dorothy had become a reluctant celebrity, giving interviews about the search while trying to manage the growing costs and psychological stress of the operation. The excavation expenses had already exceeded $300,000, and the environmental consulting firm was warning that they were approaching the limits of safe excavation depth without risking groundwater contamination or structural instability. "We're reaching the maximum depth where electronic components could have been deposited based on waste layering analysis," explained project manager Florence Sterling. "Below this level, we encounter older waste that predates your father's disposal activities." But Dorothy's research into Harold's journal entries had revealed additional information that gave her hope that the search was still viable. "Dad wrote about waterproofing and protective storage for his cryptocurrency drives," Dorothy explained to the excavation team. He was an electrical engineer who understood environmental risks to electronic equipment. Harold's journal entries from 2018 and 2019 showed that he had been experimenting with protective enclosures and moisture-resistant storage solutions for his cryptocurrency holdings, suggesting that the hard drive might have survived burial conditions better than typical electronic equipment. January 2019 sealed the backup drive in waterproof case with desiccant packets. Should survive underground storage if necessary, Harold had written, providing Dorothy with evidence that the device might still be functional even after weeks of burial in landfill conditions. This information convinced Dorothy to authorize extending the search operation, despite the mounting costs and the skepticism of family members who were concerned about her obsession with recovering Harold's lost fortune. "Dorothy, you've spent our children's college funds on this search," her sister Margaret warned during one of their increasingly tense phone conversations. "At what point do you accept that the hard drive is gone forever?" But Dorothy's determination was reinforced by messages of support from other families who had experienced similar cryptocurrency losses, and by cryptocurrency recovery experts who believed the search operation was technically feasible. The Pemberton search is pioneering new techniques for cryptocurrency recovery that could help other families recover lost digital assets, explained digital forensics specialist Thomas Whitmore. Even if this particular search is unsuccessful, the methodologies being developed could prevent future losses. The breakthrough came during the 7th week of excavation, when metal detectors identified electronic components in a section of the landfill that corresponded to the collection route and time frame of Harold's discarded belongings. "We found multiple hard drives, computer components, and electronic storage devices," reported excavation supervisor Clarence Hayes. "Most are severely damaged by moisture and compression, but some items appear to have been protected by waterproof packaging." Dorothy felt her heart racing as she watched excavation crews carefully extract electronic components from the garbage, hoping that one of the recovered devices would prove to be Harold's disguised cryptocurrency storage drive. "This external drive was sealed in a waterproof Pelican case," announced lead technician Vernon Pemberton, holding up a device that matched Harold's description of his Bitcoin storage setup. "The case is intact, and the drive appears to be in good condition." The recovery of what might be Harold's cryptocurrency drive created intense excitement among the search team, but Dorothy forced herself to remain cautious until digital forensics experts could examine the device and determine whether it contained Harold's Bitcoin holdings. "We need to be extremely careful about how we handle potential cryptocurrency storage devices," warned digital recovery specialist Patricia Sterling. "One mistake during the recovery process could permanently destroy access to any digital assets that might be stored on the drive." The device was transported to a specialized digital forensics laboratory, where experts began the delicate process of examining its contents without damaging potential cryptocurrency wallet files or private keys that might be stored on the hardware. "The drive appears to be functional, and we can see encrypted files that are consistent with cryptocurrency storage applications," reported Laboratory Director Florence Hayes after the initial assessment. "However, accessing the Bitcoin holdings will require decryption keys that may or may not be recoverable from the device itself." This development meant that Dorothy's search operation had successfully located what appeared to be Harold's cryptocurrency storage device, but accessing the Bitcoin fortune would require additional technical expertise and potentially weeks of additional work. Finding the hard drive was just the first step, Dorothy told reporters who had gathered to cover the recovery. "Now we need to determine whether Dad's Bitcoin holdings can actually be accessed and transferred to secure storage." The excavation project that had consumed months of Dorothy's life and hundreds of thousands of dollars had achieved the seemingly impossible goal of finding a single hard drive among millions of tons of garbage. But the ultimate success of the operation would depend on whether Harold's cryptocurrency fortune could be recovered from the damaged storage device. The father, who had spent years building digital wealth while keeping it secret from his family, had created one final challenge for Dorothy: accessing encrypted files that contained the private keys to a Bitcoin fortune worth tens of millions of dollars. The search that had begun with Dorothy's guilt about discarding her father's belongings had evolved into a high-tech treasure hunt that attracted international attention while testing the limits of cryptocurrency recovery technology and her own determination to honor Harold's legacy. The cryptocurrency recovery process that followed the successful excavation of Harold's hard drive proved to be even more challenging than finding the device in the landfill. Dorothy found herself working with some of the world's leading experts in digital forensics and cryptocurrency security, trying to access encrypted files that contained the private keys to Harold's Bitcoin fortune. The drive contains multiple encrypted wallet files, but accessing them will require either Harold's passwords or sophisticated cryptographic analysis that could take months or years to complete, explained Dr. Chester Pemberton, a computer science professor at Case Western Reserve University, who specialized in cryptocurrency security. Harold's journal entries provided some clues about his security methods, but they also revealed that he had been extremely cautious about password protection and had used multiple layers of encryption to protect his Bitcoin holdings from theft or unauthorized access. October 2020, updated wallet encryption with 256-bit AES and 12-word recovery phrase stored separately. No one will be able to access my BTC without both the drive and the recovery phrase, Harold had written in one of his final journal entries. This information meant that accessing the Bitcoin fortune would require not just the recovered hard drive, but also Harold's handwritten recovery phrase, which Dorothy had not found among his papers, despite extensive searching through his house and personal belongings. Your father was extremely security conscious, Dr. Pemberton explained to Dorothy. That's good news for protecting his Bitcoin from thieves, but it's bad news for family members trying to inherit his cryptocurrency holdings. The recovery process was further complicated by damage that the hard drive had sustained during its burial in the landfill, including moisture exposure and physical compression that had corrupted some of the stored data. About 15% of the drive's storage capacity appears to be damaged, reported digital recovery specialist Thomas Sterling. We can recover most of the wallet files, but some of the encryption keys may have been permanently lost. Dorothy authorized spending an additional $100,000 on advanced data recovery techniques and cryptographic analysis, despite warnings from family members and financial advisors that she was gambling with money she couldn't afford to lose. I've already spent $400,000 on this recovery effort, Dorothy told her children during another family meeting about the mounting costs. But if there's any chance of accessing Dad's Bitcoin fortune, I have to pursue every possible option. The technical challenges of accessing Harold's encrypted cryptocurrency files attracted attention from academic researchers and technology companies who were interested in developing better methods for cryptocurrency inheritance and recovery. The Pemberton case highlights fundamental problems with cryptocurrency security that affect millions of families, explained cryptocurrency research director Margaret Hayes. Most Bitcoin holders don't have adequate inheritance planning, leading to permanent loss of digital assets when the owner dies. But Dorothy's situation was complicated by time pressures and emotional stress that made it difficult to make rational decisions about how much money to spend on recovery efforts that offered no guarantee of success. The longer we wait, the more difficult the recovery becomes, warned cryptographic analyst Vernon Cross. Cryptocurrency values are volatile, and the hardware degradation could make the files completely inaccessible if we don't act quickly. 3 months after recovering the hard drive from the landfill, Dorothy received news that transformed her understanding of both the recovery process and Harold's intentions about his cryptocurrency legacy. We found a hidden partition on the drive that contains what appears to be a video message from your father, reported Dr. Pemberton. He apparently created instructions for accessing his Bitcoin holdings in case something happened to him. The video message showed Harold sitting in his attic workspace, addressing the camera with the same methodical precision he had brought to his engineering work and cryptocurrency mining activities. "Dorothy," Harold said in the recorded message, "if you're watching this, it means something has happened to me and you've discovered my Bitcoin mining operation. I know this will come as a shock, but I've been building this digital fortune for our family's future security." Harold's video provided detailed instructions for accessing his cryptocurrency wallets, including password hints and recovery procedures that he had never shared during his lifetime. The recovery phrase is hidden in Mum's old recipe box, written in her handwriting on the back of her chocolate chip cookie recipe, Harold explained in the video. "I knew you'd never throw away anything that belonged to your mother." This revelation sent Dorothy racing back to her father's house, where she found her deceased mother's recipe collection, exactly where Harold had said it would be, with the Bitcoin recovery phrase written in faded ink on a yellowed index card. The phrase, "chocolate chip legacy treasure memory," Golden future happiness, dreams, fortune, smile forever dreams, unlocks my entire Bitcoin wallet, Harold continued in his video message. But Dorothy, I need you to understand that this money comes with responsibilities. Harold's final instructions revealed that he had intended his Bitcoin fortune to be used not just for Dorothy's personal benefit, but for charitable giving and family financial security that would honor the values he and her mother had tried to instill. I want half of the Bitcoin holdings donated to educational charities that help children from disadvantaged backgrounds, Harold explained in the video. The other half should be used to ensure that our family never has to worry about financial security again. With Harold's recovery phrase and access instructions, Dorothy was finally able to unlock his cryptocurrency wallets and gain access to the 247 Bitcoin that he had accumulated over more than a decade of careful mining and investment. The total value is approximately $78 million at current market prices, confirmed Dr. Pemberton after successfully transferring Harold's Bitcoin holdings to secure storage under Dorothy's control. Your father's mining operation was one of the most successful early cryptocurrency investments ever documented, but accessing Harold's Bitcoin fortune was just the beginning of Dorothy's responsibilities as the inheritor of digital wealth that came with explicit instructions for charitable giving and family stewardship. The hard drive that she had thrown away in ignorance had been recovered through months of expensive excavation, advanced technical analysis, and her determination to honor Harold's legacy despite enormous financial and emotional costs. The father who had kept his cryptocurrency mining secret during his lifetime had ultimately provided his daughter with both a massive inheritance and clear guidance about how to use digital wealth in ways that reflected their family's values and commitment to helping others. 6 months after accessing Harold's Bitcoin fortune, Dorothy found herself navigating the complex world of cryptocurrency management, tax planning, and charitable giving while trying to honor her father's wishes about how the digital wealth should be used to benefit both her family and the broader community. Managing $78 million in Bitcoin requires sophisticated financial planning and legal expertise, explained Estate Attorney Florence Whitmore, who had been helping Dorothy structure the charitable giving and family trust arrangements that Harold had outlined in his video instructions. The process of converting Harold's cryptocurrency holdings into a manageable inheritance had proven more complicated than Dorothy had initially expected, involving tax consultants, financial advisors, and charity lawyers who specialized in large-scale philanthropic giving. Bitcoin donations to qualified charities can provide significant tax advantages, tax specialist Chester Hayes explained during one of their planning meetings. But the transactions must be structured carefully to comply with IRS regulations governing cryptocurrency gifts. Harold's instructions to donate half of his Bitcoin fortune to educational charities had led Dorothy to research organizations that aligned with her father's values and engineering background, ultimately selecting programs that provided technology education and college scholarships for disadvantaged students. The Harold Pemberton Foundation for Engineering Education will provide annual scholarships for 200 students pursuing STEM degrees at Ohio universities, announced Foundation Director Margaret Sterling during the press conference announcing Dorothy's charitable giving program. But the public attention that surrounded Dorothy's cryptocurrency fortune had also attracted unwanted interest from investment advisors, distant relatives, and various people who claimed to have connections to Harold or knowledge about his Bitcoin mining activities. "You need to be very careful about who you trust with information about your Bitcoin holdings," warned security consultant Thomas Cross, who had been helping Dorothy develop privacy and protection strategies for managing her inherited digital wealth. Cryptocurrency holdings make you a target for sophisticated scams, extortion attempts, and even physical threats from people who want to steal your private keys. The security concerns had forced Dorothy to relocate to a new address, hire personal security services, and implement digital privacy measures that protected her Bitcoin fortune from theft, while allowing her to manage the charitable giving and family financial planning that Harold had envisioned. "I never imagined that inheriting money would make me feel less secure rather than more secure," Dorothy told her sister Margaret during one of their regular conversations about the challenges of managing Harold's legacy. "But I also understand why Dad was so secretive about his Bitcoin mining. This kind of wealth attracts attention that can be dangerous if not managed carefully." The family financial planning aspects of Harold's inheritance had proven more straightforward than the charitable giving, with Dorothy establishing college funds for her grandchildren and providing financial security for extended family members who had supported her during the long search and recovery process. Thomas and Patricia will never have to worry about mortgage payments or college expenses for their children, Dorothy reflected during an interview about her family's transformation since accessing Harold's Bitcoin fortune. But more importantly, they've learned about the importance of financial planning and the responsibilities that come with inherited wealth. Harold's video instructions had also included specific guidance about cryptocurrency security and long-term wealth management that reflected his engineering background and his understanding of digital asset risks. Keep the Bitcoin in cold storage, diversify gradually into traditional investments, and never let the wealth change your fundamental values or character, Harold had advised in his recorded message. Money is a tool for creating opportunities and helping others, not an end in itself. This philosophy had guided Dorothy's approach to managing the inheritance, with systematic conversion of cryptocurrency into diversified investments, while maintaining the charitable giving commitments that Harold had considered essential to the family's legacy. 1 year after accessing Harold's Bitcoin fortune, Dorothy was invited to speak at cryptocurrency conferences about inheritance planning and the importance of communication between crypto investors and their families. My father's secretiveness about his Bitcoin mining nearly resulted in the permanent loss of his life's work, Dorothy told audiences of cryptocurrency enthusiasts and financial planners. Crypto investors need to develop inheritance plans that ensure their digital assets can be accessed by family members without compromising security. Her advocacy for cryptocurrency inheritance planning had led to consulting opportunities with financial institutions and technology companies that were developing better tools for managing digital asset transfers between generations. The Pemberton case demonstrates both the potential value of early cryptocurrency investment and the critical importance of estate planning for digital assets, explained Financial Services Director Vernon Pemberton during a conference presentation about Dorothy's experience. But perhaps Dorothy's most meaningful work was the direct impact of Harold's charitable giving on students who were pursuing engineering and technology education with support from the foundation established in his memory. Mr. Pemberton's Bitcoin fortune is funding my computer science degree and allowing me to focus on studies rather than working multiple jobs to pay for college, testified scholarship recipient Patricia Hayes during the foundation's annual award ceremony. His generosity is changing lives and creating opportunities that wouldn't exist without his investment in cryptocurrency and his daughter's commitment to honoring his wishes. As Dorothy reflected on the 2 years that had passed since discovering Harold's secret Bitcoin mining operation, she understood that the lost hard drive had ultimately led to discoveries about her father's character and values that were more valuable than the cryptocurrency fortune itself. The excavation project taught me about Dad's methodical approach to building wealth and his commitment to using that wealth for purposes beyond personal enrichment, Dorothy told her children during a family gathering to mark the anniversary of Harold's death. But more importantly, it taught me about the responsibility that comes with inherited wealth and the importance of using financial resources to create opportunities for others. The father, who had spent over a decade secretly building a Bitcoin fortune, had ultimately provided his daughter with both the means and the motivation to create positive change in their community while ensuring financial security for future generations of their family. The hard drive that Dorothy had thrown away in ignorance had become the catalyst for charitable giving, educational opportunities, and family financial planning that honored Harold's memory while benefiting hundreds of people who had never known about his quiet cryptocurrency mining activities. 5 years after the successful recovery of Harold's Bitcoin fortune from the Cuyahoga County landfill, Dorothy stood before an audience of cryptocurrency investors, estate planners, and technology educators at the National Digital Asset Conference, reflecting on how her father's secret mining operation had ultimately created a legacy that extended far beyond the $78 million in Bitcoin he had accumulated. When I first discovered Dad's cryptocurrency journal in his attic, Dorothy told the assembled conference participants, I thought the story was about recovering lost Bitcoin. What I learned through the excavation project and managing his inheritance is that the real story was about the values and vision that motivated him to build digital wealth in the first place. The Harold Pemberton Foundation for Engineering Education had grown into one of Ohio's largest STEM scholarship programs, having provided college funding for over 1,000 students pursuing technology and engineering degrees at universities throughout the state. Mr. Pemberton's Bitcoin fortune has transformed educational opportunities for an entire generation of students who are now working as engineers, software developers, and technology innovators, reported Foundation Director Margaret Sterling during her presentation about the program's impact. But the Foundation's work had expanded beyond just scholarship funding to include technology education programs for elementary and high school students, many of whom were learning about cryptocurrency, blockchain technology, and digital asset management as part of their regular curriculum. The Pemberton Digital Literacy Program teaches students about cryptocurrency security, blockchain applications, and the importance of inheritance planning for digital assets, explained Program Director Thomas Cross. We're helping young people understand both the opportunities and the responsibilities that come with digital wealth. Dorothy's advocacy for cryptocurrency inheritance planning had led to legislative changes in Ohio and 12 other states that required financial institutions to provide better guidance about digital asset estate planning and family communication strategies. The Pemberton Digital Asset Inheritance Act requires cryptocurrency exchanges and wallet providers to offer inheritance planning services and educational resources for families, explained State Representative Florence Hayes, who had sponsored the legislation. Dorothy's experience demonstrates that most cryptocurrency losses are preventable with proper planning and family communication. But perhaps Dorothy's most significant contribution was her work with families who are dealing with similar cryptocurrency inheritance challenges, providing guidance and support for people navigating the complex process of accessing deceased relatives' digital assets. I receive calls every week from families who are trying to recover lost Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies, Dorothy explained during interviews about her advocacy work. Most of these situations can be resolved with proper documentation and technical expertise, but families need guidance about where to find help. The digital asset recovery techniques that had been developed during Dorothy's landfill excavation project had been refined and systematized, creating new industries and professional services that helped families recover lost cryptocurrency holdings. The Pemberton recovery method has been used successfully in over 200 cases of lost or inaccessible cryptocurrency, reported digital forensics specialist Chester Pemberton. Dorothy's pioneering work has created solutions for problems that affect millions of cryptocurrency investors. 10 years after Harold's death, Dorothy received recognition from the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland for her contributions to cryptocurrency education and digital asset inheritance planning. Dorothy Pemberton's experience with her father's Bitcoin fortune has educated countless families about the importance of cryptocurrency estate planning, while demonstrating that early Bitcoin investment could create generational wealth when properly managed, said Federal Reserve President Vernon Sterling during the recognition ceremony. The ceremony was held at the Harold Pemberton Technology Center, a facility funded by Dorothy's Foundation that provided advanced computer science and engineering education for students throughout northeastern Ohio. Dad would be amazed by what his secret Bitcoin mining operation has become, Dorothy told the audience of students, educators, and technology professionals who attended the ceremony. He mined cryptocurrency as an individual hobby, but it's become the foundation for educational programs that are preparing thousands of students for careers in technology and engineering. In the audience, Dorothy could see scholarship recipients who had graduated from college with foundation support and were now working as software engineers, cybersecurity specialists, and blockchain developers whose careers had been made possible by Harold's digital asset legacy. The most important lesson from my experience, Dorothy said during her acceptance speech, is that cryptocurrency and digital assets are tools for creating opportunities and solving problems, not just investments that generate personal wealth. My father understood this instinctively, which is why he was so specific about using his Bitcoin fortune for charitable giving and family security rather than just personal enrichment. As Dorothy concluded her remarks and looked out at an audience that included both established professionals and young students who were just beginning their technology education, she understood that Harold's secret Bitcoin mining operation had created ripple effects that would continue benefiting people for decades. The hard drive that she had thrown away in ignorance had been recovered through determination, technical expertise, and substantial financial investment. But the real recovery had been discovering Harold's vision for using digital wealth to create educational opportunities and financial security for others. The father, who had never spoken about his cryptocurrency activities during his lifetime, had ultimately created one of the most comprehensive examples of how early Bitcoin investment could generate both personal wealth and positive social impact when managed according to clear values and long-term planning. Most importantly, Dorothy's experience had demonstrated that cryptocurrency inheritance was not just about accessing digital assets, but about understanding and honoring the intentions of the people who had built those assets for the benefit of future generations. The Bitcoin fortune that had nearly been lost forever in a landfill had become a model for cryptocurrency estate planning, charitable giving, and family financial stewardship that would guide other families navigating the complex challenges of digital asset inheritance. Harold's secret had become a public legacy that educated, inspired, and financially supported thousands of people who would never know the quiet electrical engineer whose methodical approach to cryptocurrency mining had created opportunities that extended far beyond his own family's financial security.